Namaste. Good morning from Young Zindo. Hey, first of all, I don't know if you can read this. It says Ventura, California. My brother from a different mother. Actually, couldn't be closer than Paul Paulson. How's that for a name, Paul Paulson? Happy birthday, Paul. I'm wearing this Ventura shirt. He lives in Ventura on the coast of Central California, basically. The beginning of the end of Southern California, I think, at the beginning of Northern, somewhere central. The lowest part of the central. The most southerly part of the central. How's that? Rather than saying Southern California. Anyway, happy birthday, Paul. You always get to be the next year. You turn 74 today. I won't turn 74 until March 4th. So warm up the 74 for me, brother. Okay. Before I begin today's topic, which is a very personal topic, and I'll get into it, I want to talk about words once again. What words are, and how useful or unuseful are they? This comes from my friend. I feel like she's a friend. She's a Quora commentator that I really, Pasha Foley, P-A-U-S-H-A-F-O-L-E-Y, Pasha. And this is Paul's birthday. Hey, that's fortuitous. Anyways, somebody asked her a question, and she's really good. Why did Buddha advise so many people, but few got enlightenment? Yeah, if the Buddha was so special, it seemed like there would have been millions that have gotten enlightened. But it doesn't work like that way. And here she starts out by talking about words. The tricky thing about words is that words are nothing that feel like something. There you go. Words are nothing but feel like something. Why is that? Words are sounds. You make a sound, then you stop making a sound. That's all. That's it. The sound doesn't affect reality. It doesn't make a change, but it does promote an emotional response. Communication as we know it. The one we rely on, the one that we only accept as a real communication. Non-verbal communication is up to interpretation. Inching heart to heart is seldom spoken of, and probably even less widely known or experienced. Okay. The emotional responses that words evoke is what gives an impression that words are impactful, powerful, creative, but they aren't. When I speak words, you experience an emotional reaction. Yes, as I speak to you, some kind of reaction like this is BS, or some kind of emotional reaction. This is the truth, this is worth listening to, this is life changing, this is life altering, this is meaningless drivel. So this is the key. You react to the sounds I'm making that correspond to ideas in your head. When I speak, emotions might arise in you. When I stop speaking, emotions will dissipate. That's it. That's all. That's what happens. That's all that happens. As you listen to my words and you experience the emotions, you will likely feel that something real is happening, something profound, something is shifting, something is changing. But it isn't. You're having a reaction to sound. Simple, physical reaction. You might, if you choose, act in accordance with the words you've heard. You might choose to do something to make a change, to make a shift. You might choose to change things, how you see something, how you relate to something. If you do, that will be your choice. It will be your acting, your changing, your shifting, not the words making you, changing you, shifting you. Words are just sounds, regardless of who speaks them. up to and including the Buddha. The words of the Buddha may have a power to change you as the words spoken by your mother or a random stranger on the street. Buddha, enlightened ones, don't have magic words that change those who hear them. No matter how enlightened the being that speaks to you, all you will hear is words, sounds, that might elicit a reaction in you. It is up to you to choose how you respond to these words and how you relate to the words. The words themselves can't force your choice. Buddha talked. Buddha spoke words. People heard those words and made their choices. There we go. That's what free will is. To make your choices to what you hear. Let's get the light. How's the light? And let the light shine. So I thought that was particularly beautiful, relevant, and worth sharing with you. And today, I wanted to talk to you about, I think this was personal, so let's see if I can get my topic title. I have to look it up because I want to get it right. I had it right. I want to... Okay. Now this is, when I said profound, I have to build it up to it a little bit. My father died when I was 4. That's the reality, okay? My only experience with a father was my first marriage. Her father, Alfred Johansson, was a great, kind, compassionate. I loved him. He was an orchid enthusiast, anthurium enthusiast, an expert in growing things, kind-hearted, business-minded, but yet with a heart. Not the soulless businessman that I think of. And he treated me. He would even tease me because of my bald head. He said, "Yeah, you have a lot of face to wash." And he liked me because his hair was thinning, but he looked like he had a full head compared to my bald pate, because compared to my baldness. It made him feel better. But he taught me things. He offered me opportunities that I wasn't awake enough to react, to take advantage, to react on the opportunities. I'm sure he would have preferred if I was more a businessman, but my wife, his first daughter, his first child, was a natural-born business person. So one in the family is enough, Two just looks like having trouble. You need a stern one and you need a friendly one. You need a soft one and you need a hard one. And opposites make the best couples. I think it's a recipe for disaster if you're both strong-willed, if you're both business people. Just too much to disagree on. And I think the key functioning for me has been, which I learned from the first one, was been to agree to disagree. Keep it simple. So anyway, this was my first experience where I felt really strongly the father figure. But ironically, just as I'm the weakest link in my marriage, he was the softer side of his duo. Both his wives were strong-willed women, more like men, and he was more like a mother, more like a nurturing, well, growing. Just the art of growing is nurturing, right? So maybe he was a little bit too much like me and probably just promoted the mother in me. But I did have, for 3 or 4 years, a brief image of a father. And all my life, I've felt the deep pain of not having a father. My mother did the best that she could to fulfill 2 roles, but the other half, the yang. I had way too much yin and not enough yang. And then unfortunately, or to be expected, when my opportunity became to become a father presented itself, I was a dismal, absolute, extreme failure because and I blamed it on, like I tend to do, rather than have a lifetime of blame until I started self-recognition and said, okay, the buck stops here. But I always said, well, I didn't have a role model, so how was I expected to be a father? And those are just words. And that's why I began with that long talk from Paula. Pausha Foley, on Paulson's birthday, about words and what they really mean. So these were more of just my words to myself, my self-dialogue. Well, no example, so kind of left me off the hook. But just yesterday I was sitting here, and funny, I was thinking about this opportunity, and now in my life there is a strong father figure, but he chooses to ignore me. I didn't fit his image of who he wanted his precious little girl to marry. I wasn't what he wanted, and he's, from all intents, it never made an effort to reach out. So it's a shame. I think we would be friends, but it's kind of a shame that now a strong male is available that could be a father figure. Maybe the fact that I'm 2 years older than him has to be mentioned here. It might be hard to be a father of someone older than you. Although I was a father to my mother. And if you go figure that out. Originally I was sort of a substitute husband, and then I graduated, at least it's not quite as incestuous as being her father figure. She would ask me if she could do this or she could do that, particularly near the end of her life. But what hit me hard yesterday is an I am. Remember, I am is an affirmation. I am my father. And this, again, I've been digging up baggage that I'm still carried, that's been stuffed deeper and deeper, and I'm penetrating deeper and deeper. And the deepest thing I thought was my failure as a father, as a deadbeat dad, to not nurture, to not provide financially, to not to do anything that I would think a father should do. And yesterday, it came up that even deeper than my failure to be a father to my son in any way, what shape or form, is the realization that how deep I carried this pain of having no father. And just yesterday it knocked me off my chair when I am my father. So if I am my father, which I just embraced, I am my father, it makes my previous excuse of having no model of a father to rely on, I had to instead myself. What could be a more personal example of fatherhood than fathering yourself? Recognizing the father in each of us, just as we celebrate and recognize the mother in all of us. I am my father. And what's really interesting about this statement is that neither my mother or my father were any particular part of my awakening experience. Of course, the environment, the lack, my father passing, even though he told my mother before I was born that he didn't want to have children because he knew his heart was bad, and he only lived to be 48. And he just had a previous family, and my mom was so desperate that I think she trapped him with pregnancy and stayed pregnancy. Stayed pregnant for the next 5 years of his life. So poor daddy had to deal with a pregnant female for the last 5 years of his life. He had a handful. But what I'm trying to mention here is that neither my mother or my father had much of a role that I was aware of in my awakening. It's not like I looked to them, but they did provide me with this body. They provided me an opportunity to deal with karma. And I've always known that my father had work to do, and he's in realms far, far, far away. And my mother's constant dependency on him, and her constant by going to seances, and by just her neediness alone, would call him back from, much to his annoyance, it felt like to me, they call him back, and he would say, "Come on, woman, get a grip, because I'm far away, and you're impeding my progress. You're calling me back from realms." And no doubt it was a hardship to leave the realms that he needed for his own development to be in, knowing that my mother needed an opportunity to deal with her own fears, her own desires. So it was a nuisance. And she continued to the day she died to call him back. And where my mother went, I feel like she's on this earth right now, that whatever she did, she was close enough that she was immediately incarnated shortly after her passing. And I have no idea where, but I'm sure of one thing, that she was positioned herself into the proper environment so that she could, in this lifetime, wrap it up, remember the forgotten, awaken to the non-existence, the fallacy, the maya, the illusion of separation and division. Whereas I think my sister is very close. She's probably a lifetime away, and my brother, maybe 2 or 3. But I have glimpses from him that even though he really doesn't really get or care to get, or he looks to me, the idea of doing nothing is an anathema to him. The idea of trying to be a human being rather than a human doing, it just sticks in his craw, and he doesn't buy it. He doesn't have to. But once in a while I'll say something to him and I see it sink in, and the latest thing has been, don't expect anything from anybody, you'll never be disappointed. He heard those words, and it were meaningful words, even though we just read that words are words, but it's words that I believe he chose to incorporate and chose to react to and chose to work on, because it made sense. He's been disappointed and never quite sure. A little bit of victimhood, nothing like our mother, but a little bit thinking that, gee, I work so hard, I do so well, that, why doesn't everybody why do people continually disappoint me? Well, I would say to him, lower your standards a little bit for others. You can keep them for yourself, but don't extend them to others. Not many are equipped with your work ethic, your perfectionism, your OCD. Give us a break. Recognize the greatness in others. And that's it, brother. Recognize the greatness in others. So don't expect anything, don't get disappointed. How's that? I promise you that if you don't expect anything from anybody, you'll never be disappointed. I'm very secure in the truth of those words. But again, truth of words is only, no matter how much truth comes out of your mouth, it has to be accepted and it has to be put into practice by the other, or else it's just that, sound. Words are absence of sound, followed by sound, followed by absence of sound. And they're equally meaningless most of the time. But we keep trying. That's inherent in who we are. That's the Father in me. Now, when the 20 years that I taught university students, I practiced fatherhood because I became a father figure, a living example to every student, whether or not they got it. I was so lucky that I created my own syllabus, class content. And my class content was always focused on self-improvement, practicing critical thinking, learning critical thinking, starting them on the road to self-discovery. All of my teachings were always based in my spiritual pursuit, my spiritual practice, my spiritual being, because that's all I was. That's all I've ever been in this lifetime. So I had a golden opportunity to support their growth mentally, emotionally, physically, and most importantly, spiritually. So, isn't that a father? Haven't I been a father? And since I had no outside influence, wasn't the statement, I am my father, isn't this what it rests on? How powerful. And I was sitting here yesterday and it hit me like a ton of bricks. Only yesterday did I realize that I am my father. It reminds me of Darth Vader. I am your father, Luke. Well, thank God my father is not Darth Vader. I think most days I would pick myself over Darth Vader. And that's just me. And why is my light flickering? I think I got the light the same, but I think what I say, and I'm wearing my cowl because I've been really in the mood of honoring my one of my spirit guides, Roger Bacon, that 13th century Franciscan monk. I've been in the mood. So today is a double whammy, Ventura. Can you see that? Let's move everything. Ventura, Paul Paulson, again, happy birthday, brother. And like I said, keep that 74 warmed up so that one, make my transition. He's always made my transition to the next year easier because he's had like a 4.5 month head start. And I can't think of any better person to warm up the year for me than Mr. Paulson. And today is his birthday, and I've reached out to him on Facebook, FaceTime, Messenger, Line, and nada. I haven't heard from him in a while. So, a little bit of concern. I would drop an email, but he has an iPhone, a new one, a shiny new one. But he's kept pretty busy by B and B's family, which is because he's a great grandfather. I'm not even a grandfather yet, but he's a great grandfather, and he's ideal for the job. And it's a pretty good accomplishment to be a great grandfather, considering that he never had children of his own. But he always married. Well, particularly this last marriage, B, I love her to pieces. And she came equipped with a granddaughter, and then that granddaughter provided them with a grandson and a granddaughter. I mean, a great-grandson and a great-granddaughter. So, he became a great-grandfather without fathering a child. Quite accomplishment, Paul. You're the man. So I'm using my example of I am as an affirmation. I am that I am is the most famous affirmation, or just I am. And that's kind of the summation. It's the shortest. Well, I think the shortest summation would be OM. Even though it's drawn out longer than I am. Om is the one syllable expression of everything, whereas I am is two. But both of them equally so, equally useful. The Western tradition is, for the most part, has celebrated. There's a few famous yogis that are Ramahana, that's passed, I believe, that used I am and I am that I am. And some people were more, Paramahamsa Yogananda, who incorporated Christianity, was quite a fan of Christ. And he was the first yogi to move to America. And so it made sense that he chose, well, Jesus was a Buddha, and my Christian friends would find that blasphemous, but trust me, it's so. Buddha never said, become a Buddhist. Christ never said, become a Christian. What Christ said is, I am the Christ. And I said, become the Christ. And Buddha said, don't become, he said, become a Buddhist. No, sorry, become a Buddha. Don't follow me. I'm just an outside source, just as I read. His words had no more impact on people than the man in the moon, than Donald Trump's words had on people. If you want to put it in the most gross terms and the most obvious schism between Buddha and Trump, that's a stretch. But what's equally so of both of them is that their words were just words. Silence, sound, silence. And it's our emotional response, which is learned, by the way. I don't have any emotional response to Russian or Chinese, for that matter. So my emotions are based on the language that my mother tongue, English. So emotions are stirred by words. That's what words do. And these words create an image in your mind, or not. I love that. This is always in a statement when you say, this is so or not, which is equally so. It's a good little reminder, after you've gotten rid of beliefs through the use of doubts, which lead you to surrender, which lead you to looking within, embracing, loving, nurturing yourself, so that what goes inward will come outward. To love, you must love inward. To learn, you must look inward. To awaken to the forgotten, you must look inward. And then it just explodes. This is my compassion. And I'm wearing the green also, not only for Paul Poulsen, but the green of my heart chakra and compassion beginning with myself and healing this probably festering wound, long held, long buried, encapsulated, deeper than deep, about lack in the Father, when indeed I never lacked for anything, nor do you. It's the illusion of lack. It's the affirmation of lack, which I was affirming. Oh, I didn't have a father. I don't, and I used an excuse. I got off the hook by saying, well, I didn't have a father, so I had no role model, so I failed. So, that's to be expected because I didn't have a role model. Hey, a lot of fathers out there are pretty shitty, if you don't mind me saying, role models. In fact, there's a long time, something I've noticed for a long time is that children seek to be the opposite of whatever their parents are most of the time, and the irony is lost on them is that they become their mother, they become their father. So I think to be proactive, to say, I am my father, how empowering. I dug deep, I squeezed, I popped the zit and let the poison out of holding on to this long, painful, what seemed like a lacking or loss about Father. And the truth be known, since I've lived hundreds of thousands of lives at least, I've had many opportunities to have a father for better or worse. So I think accepting the responsibility is what I always talk about. Looking within, I found the Father. I was empowered by the understanding, finally, that it was not a lack of, that I had always been my Father, and I always will be my Father, as yours will be yours.